Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust for Tuesday, July 6th, and welcome you all here. This is a little different time than our normal meeting, but we are accommodating a change in schedule and take this opportunity to get all together at 1 o'clock. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of our June 22nd meeting. These minutes have been distributed to you previously, and you've had a chance to review them. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes that were distributed?
Move their approval.
Have a motion made and approved. Please cast your votes. And the minutes are approved. Thank you very much. The next item, item 3, is the ratification of some claims that have been incurred by the trust. The claims are shown in your agenda. They all are associated with TIF 8, the downtown Devon TIF. Are there any questions or comments on the claims?
No questions, but move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion made and second. Please cast your votes. And the claims are ratified. Thank you very much. Item 4 are some items for individual consideration. And item 4A is a joint resolution of the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust and the City of Oklahoma City renewing agreement support. Kathy, you like to say anything about this one?
Sure, just a few brief comments. We have several outstanding notes that the trust has entered into, and each of those requires an agreement of support from the city. This item just renews those agreements of support, which must be renewed annually as a term of the note. So there's the one that's the $25 million note for TIF 2, the $95 million note for TIF 8, and the $5 million note that was to fund additional TIF 2 projects.
And essentially, this is a routine manner that the lending agencies have asked us to do each year.
Yes, you'll see these each fiscal year.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? We've incurred the debt just as agreed that it's still a good idea.
So move.
Second.
Okay, motion made and second. And are there any questions or further discussion? Please cast your votes. And the item is approved. Item 4B is an item dealing with the Project 180 and its specifications to be advertised for bids with the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust, Project PC 0391, Project 180 Streetscape, Construction Traffic Control Contract, and is proposed to be, at this time anyway, funded by TIF dollars. Any questions or comments? We've got some experts here who can answer questions on any of these projects this afternoon. Kathy, would you like to say something about this one? Okay. Well, the chair then would move approval of this item.
Second.
Have a motion made and second. Any further discussion? Cast your votes, and the item is approved. Thank you very much. Item 4C is another project in the downtown area, which is the final plans and specifications for Project 180 Streetscape, and it gives a list of those projects, those streets that are involved. Are there any questions or comments? This project is proposed to be funded by a combination of TIF and GO bond money.
I'll just say that this is our second package of actual streetscape projects to be bid, and you can see the limits of it, but it's Dean A. McGee, Harvey Avenue from Dean A. McGee to 6th Street in that area around the memorial. So this is the second package. The first one is we're still awaiting bids on for the Reno Avenue streetscape.
Thank you, Kathy. Are there any questions? This is a fairly extensive project. Estimated cost $6.5 million. So it's a major step in getting our Project 180 off the boards and onto the concrete. Comments, questions? The chair would entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Okay. Is there any further comments or questions? We have, I'd say, the world's foremost authority on Project 180 in the room, so we need to take advantage of her. Only on Project 180 questions, please. All right, please cast your votes, and the item is approved. Item 4D is a related project dealing with the Myriad Gardens renovation project. in the amount of $4,689,000. Are there any questions or comments on this particular project? Second. Is there any further comments or discussion? Please cast your votes. And item 4D is approved. Item 4E, and we have an amendment that was, I think, at your place when we sat down today, increasing the cost of this project slightly. I hope if you don't have it, we can get you a copy right here. So. This is another project in the downtown area. It relates to the Myriad Botanical Gardens. It'll be funded by TIF and some general obligation bond money.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Is it prevalent to have as many mathematical mistakes as we had in 3 of the responding bids?
That's Laura who asked that question. Yeah.
There's the expert.
It is.
I'm sure glad we got a question for you, Laura.
Okay, thank you. Can you repeat your question again, please?
Is it prevalent to have as many mathematical errors with bidders on a project such as this?
We are noticing that it is being prevalent. I think that this project was extremely competitive. There was $70,000 between the 2 lowest bidders, which is unreal. That's pennies. And there was so much information that they were trying to do as far as vendors receiving those bids. We had to have very unique items. So translating that information from their cut sheet to the bid documents to the final total can get very hairy, and it's worse than the stock exchange. So I can see how that happened, and it is prevalent because of the need to transfer the written information from the phone to their cut sheet to our bidding documents. So it does happen.
Laura, do you think all the addendums that were issued in this particular contract might have also contributed to that?
No, I think the mathematical errors are truly just the last-minute exercise because you've got phone calls going and numbers being hollered out at people, and somebody's drafting that down. I believe the number of addendums had to do with significant, unique items on this project. These are things that we haven't done in Oklahoma City. They are unique to our contracting community, and they are unique to this project. So even the national people that we were getting numbers from, it was a unique item. So it wasn't something very common. There was a lot of conversation and a lot of clarification going back and forth. The fact that the middle group, the first one was anticipated, the first addenda was anticipated so that we would give that consultant some more time to refine their drawings. Our approval process before we can even advertise is 8 weeks. That's unreal. So that gave them 2 more months to refine their drawings, and we would have that refined picture for the consultants on this package, and we chose to do that. The second issue had to do with the contractors kind of starting to look at these plans, and then the 3rd, 4th, and 5th addendas, that is when they really started looking at these, and we had questions upon questions upon questions. And so when we get those questions, you must tell everybody, and for the sake of disclosure. And so all of those questions were interpreting and informing the information so those bidders could make a better bid on this, and so it really was a good process. And we had to delay the bid opening to give them that time to understand this. We've been designing it for a long time, and they just got it. So we felt very good about how this all went through the process.
It sounds like under your stewardship, y'all are catching any errors and making sure it doesn't go forward.
Well, that's the people that are working on this, so we have to thank them.
Additional questions? Well, are you comfortable with the timing of this project being completed by April for the Arts Festival opening?
We are comfortable with it. However, we are developing a contingency plan in the event something happens that we need to push out the ultimate completion of the project. So we will have probably the western side and the majority of the public spaces guaranteed open for the Arts Festival, and then we would have it buttoned up to a degree so that the contractor could come in if so needed. But there will be penalties if that doesn't make it.
If you have to extend the time and operate the Arts Festival with part of the gardens closed, will the contractor be working on it during that time?
We would say not. I believe we've been pretty forthcoming with all of our contractors that our annual year is kind of revolving around the Arts Festival. I mean, that's in the contracting community and our design community. We have discussed it. When that happens, we need traffic available. We need to make downtown very accessible. So that's the one time a year we get Christmas or your vacations.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments before we consider this item?
Just an observation that looking from the Oklahoma Tower down to the gardens, I was amazed because, you can't see at the street level as to how much earth has been moved and how much has been shaped already. So it gave me encouragement that if we don't hit bad weather, we might make the calendar.
Did you happen to see the picture in the paper a couple weeks ago of the 7-ton tree they were moving around? It's really an ambitious project.
It certainly is.
Yeah. Well, the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, motion made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say, all those in favor cast your votes. And the item carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 6F is a report on retail development in Oklahoma City. You going to say something about that?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Allison Oshel, who is the Director of Community Redevelopment and specializes in retail recruitment for Oklahoma City, working with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce. And we asked her to come in this morning and just tell you a little bit more about the work that she's doing towards retail recruiting in Oklahoma City.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I'm going to start with a wide-angle lens for you all. I was asked to talk about Oklahoma City retail, but that's hard to do without talking about national retail and what's happening in our region. This retail program is just now beginning its 4th full year, and the objective is simply to grow retail in the city and to retain our existing retailers. I didn't know this, probably most of you do, but from a United States perspective, there are 6 states that provide to their municipalities 3 sources of revenue. There are 27 states that provide 2 sources of revenue and 17 that provide 1. But of those 17, there is only 1 state whose single source of state municipal funding is sales tax. And it won't surprise you to know that that state is Oklahoma. What that says then is that more than any other state in the nation, I believe that Oklahoma's municipalities are forced to embattle for a limited number of retail opportunities. And by way of example, Whole Foods, which is opening in Oklahoma City, and we're very excited about that, probably will only open 3 to 5 stores next year. They probably have 300 location opportunities to consider. So when we've landed them in Oklahoma City, that's a real coup for our city. And landing them here was a combination of luck, good local economic conditions, and certainly not to be overlooked, a good landlord in Aubrey McClendon, who happens to have a lower ROI expectation than just about any other retail developer. Okay. The fiscal realities of relying on sales tax. Sales tax is certainly a volatile source of revenue, and I'll illustrate that on a slide later on. And we are losing sales tax revenue to internet sales. We call that clicks versus bricks, and right now the clicks are gaining. It is estimated that the state will lose $296 million in just internet sales tax in 2012 because of this. We are operating on a point of delivery versus a point of purchase system. Kathy can explain that at the end of my presentation a little better, but basically that means when I buy my couch at Mathis Brothers and I have Mathis Brothers deliver that to my home in Edmond, Edmond gets my sales tax dollars. Not every sale generates sales tax. There are a number of city and state exemptions on the books. Most of them are probably pretty worthy, but it's worth noting that there were only 6 in 1980, and there are now 143. It is estimated that the total value of sales tax exemptions to the state in 2006, which was the latest number that I could find, was $2.9 billion. And then the last point on this slide is just simply that more and more cities are providing public funding for retail development. ICSC, which is the preeminent retail membership organizations, membership is down totally by 30% since 2007, but its public sector membership since 2001 is up by nearly 300%. There are certainly more cities getting involved in the retail game. These pretty charts are just to illustrate that one way of measuring whether or not you're getting your retail market sales percentage is just to look at your population and then look at your retail sales tax. And when you look at that on the surface, it looks as though since we have 15% of the population and we're gaining 18% of the taxable retail sales, that that's a positive. But I would submit to you that we are the state's capital. We host the baseball games, the conventions, the state fair, and we're certainly the business hub. We have Tinker Air Force Base, we have the state capitol, and we certainly should be capturing more than just a simple 3% more than our population. When you drill that down even further and compare ourselves to the 6 cities that we feel that we compete the most with when it comes to site locators, that being Midwest City, Edmond, Moore, Mustang, Norman, and Yukon, the blue bar representing sales and the red bar representing population. I wish the scale was greater so that you could see the emphasis that since 2005, we're losing market share. We've dropped a little in population as well, but we have lost market share. So that's a trend that we hope to correct. And when we look at population changes, this is an important barometer for retailers and retail developers to consider. They want to know where the rooftops are going because retail certainly does follow rooftops. And it would be easy to dismiss the fact that Moore's 12% increase is only about 6,000 persons, while Oklahoma City's 5% increase is 28,000 persons. But retailers look at population density. And in the United States, of the 200 largest cities, Oklahoma City ranks 197th least dense. We are very often overlooked by retailers because of our density issue. And in fact, when you look at the 28,000 persons that we added in this 4-year period to Oklahoma City, it only added 46 persons per square mile to our population density versus Moore's 6,000 people adding 269 persons per square mile. This is the chart I referred to earlier. Retail sales certainly are volatile. Part of the downward trend that you see is certainly due to the nation's economy. Consumer spending is down nationwide, and it's certainly down in Oklahoma City and Oklahoma as a state. But part of the trend is because City of Midwest City, City of Moore, and City of Norman have all aggressively incented retail development. In 2005, Midwest City opened the Midtown Plaza. In 2006, Norman opened Target, and in 2007, the Kohl's opened in Norman. In 2007, Moore opened JCPenney's, and in 2008, Warren Theater opened. Each of these openings pulled retail sales from Oklahoma City to our suburban neighbors. In first quarter of 2010, which is our latest data, we did have a slight uptick, which is good news, but we are still operating at fiscal 2007 retail sales tax numbers. So what are we doing? Just a quick snapshot of what we're doing with our retail programs. One of the main things we do, and certainly the largest outlay of cash in our retail program budget, is the ICSC convention. Again, that stands for International Council of Shopping Centers. At its peak, there were 55,000 persons in attendance at this convention. Last year, there were only about 25,000, which is still a sizable convention. The convention, in fact, is so large that Las Vegas is the only city large enough to host it. So every May, we trek out to Las Vegas, and we have a booth there, and we host meetings there. And it's important for you all to understand this is not a trade show. This ICSC actually estimates that a full 1/3 of all retail deals are birthed at this convention. Nationally, a full 1/3 are birthed at this convention. This year we had 17 meetings. Visualize this is from an 8 to 5 business day on day 1 and 8 to noon on day 2. We hosted 17 meetings and a luncheon. The meetings are what I like to call speed dating. They're 30 minutes long, and it's an initial exchange of information. And just by way of reference, in 2007, we met a prospect who was interested in Oklahoma City. In 2010, they've just landed. They've just come to this town to look at our city for the first time. So it's a very long process, and it's one that we need to stay engaged in. I will say that 2010, in my estimation, was our best year based on the number of follow-ups that we've had. We've already had one site visit, in fact, since the May convention. What else are we doing? We're protecting our retail base. That means that we're befriending Quail Springs Mall and Penn Square Mall, both on an ownership level and on a local management level. We're sharing information. In some cases, we're doing some joint recruitment efforts. It's probably easy for people to say, let's not pay attention to Penn Square Mall, let's not pay attention to Quail Springs Mall. Lots of retail's happening. Those are retail hubs in and of themselves. Let's start paying attention to some more underserved areas. But I would submit to you that the same might have been said about Crossroads 10, 15 years ago. I don't know that an intervention with Crossroads would have made a difference, but we certainly were not at the table when the decline of Crossroads started to happen. Penn Square Mall, by some estimates, earned the city $20 to $25 million in sales tax last year. And the Quail Springs Mall area, and I count the entire area because I'm not able to get good numbers for just the mall, but the area is said to have gained the city $38 million in sales tax last year. One of the other things that we're doing to protect our retail base is to encourage people to shop local. We haven't actually started this program yet. This will be a 2011 program that we will initiate. Buying local is so important. It's important to buy from our local moms and pops that own those retail centers. It's also important to buy within Oklahoma City. It is estimated that for every $1 spent from a local owner, 68 cents will go back into your local community. That same dollar, when buying from a chain, will only recirculate into your city 43 cents. So we hope to get that word out in our Buy Local campaign. One of the other things that we're doing is cultivating relationships with brokers, retailers, and developers. This program is a direct result of a implementation request that came from a consultant study that the city conducted in 2006. This is what he said that we should be doing, so it is what we've been spending an awful lot of time doing. It is bearing fruit. We have met with 41 developers, and when I say meet with, these are quality meetings. These are not just exchanges of business cards. 41 developers, 11 of them we have incited to come to Oklahoma City, and they have made those visits. And 2 of them that we've worked with, those being Horizon Group and Retail Endeavors, have both announced openings of retail developments in Oklahoma City. Of retailers that we've targeted, 81 of them are on the targeted list, and 26 of them have made site visits, which we think is a pretty good number, and 7 have announced opened new, expanded, or renovated stores in Oklahoma City. And an example of that list of those announcements would be Whole Foods, Texadelphia in downtown Oklahoma City. JCPenney's is doing a $7 million store remodel at both Quail Springs and Penn Square Mall, and they're doing this as a result of us being able to illustrate to them that our city is investing in public infrastructure dollars in those neighborhoods. Not all JCPenney's nationwide's got that money, so those are the sorts of things that we're doing with those relationships. We're also doing an incredible amount of research and marketing materials. In your brochures that I handed out are examples of some of the marketing materials that we prepared this year. We tend to do those, update those about once a year in anticipation of the May convention. But the brochures end up being a 6-page fold of about 6 months of research. I'm a one-person shop. Your retail program pays for my salary, but it does not pay for the research department nor the marketing department, who from about January to May work diligently on preparing these marketing materials and doing the research necessary for these materials in order for us to show up at the convention. And then the last slide is just what can you do, and I don't mean what can you do as a body, with maybe one exception. This is just what can you do to encourage public policy. These are probably issues that happen at city council level, but creating clean and safe neighborhoods, which seems overly simplistic, but visualize downtown Oklahoma City 15 years ago and understand that we wouldn't be talking about what retail we'd like to see in downtown Oklahoma City had those revitalization programs not happened in downtown. Reconsider the impact of impact fees. This is a touchy one. I think impact fees are imminent, but the last time it was broached, retail would have been severely punished. The way the impact formula was set up, it would have certainly slowed down, if not stopped, retail development in this city. So although impact fees are probably a necessity, I would just say that we need to consider the impact on retail and figure out a formula that seems to work better for retail. One thing this body can do is to continue the public participation for qualified retail developments, and I know that is also touchy. But we do need to let people know that we're open for business. 10 years ago, we weren't. 10 years ago, our public policy was that we wouldn't incent retail development. That's not the case today, but not everyone knows that, so we do need to let people know we're open for business. City of Moore, Midwest City, and Norman have certainly let people know that, and they've had some good developments come their way as a result. Tulsa, in fact, has just added a retail recruitment position very similar to mine, so Tulsa is now in the game. Our market rent rates are awfully low in Oklahoma City, and so for somebody like Aubrey McClendon to come in and build the quality development that he has done at Class and Curve, that type of development in any other city could command $35 a square foot in rent. We're not getting anywhere, with the exception of perhaps our malls, anywhere close to $35 a square foot in rent. So the only way to get retail development of that quality done is to either clone Aubrey McClendon and his money and have this happen all over town, or to come to the table with some public participation. Without that, we may get retail development, but it will not be quality. It will be the strip center type stuff that we see all over town, and frankly, retailers with their 300 site opportunities to consider will overlook Oklahoma City if we don't have some better product. And then the very last thing is just simply a new program that we are launching in 2011, fiscal 2011. City Planning Department has created a position to help our smaller communities and small districts with revitalization strategies, and they've asked the Chamber's retail program to partner with them in that, so we will do that, starting with a series of workshops that we'll be hosting starting in August. And I think that's my last slide. And I will entertain questions.
Allison, thank you very much. Other questions or comments?
Allison, just a quick one. I know that the story isn't complete yet on Quail Springs ownership, but is there any direct impact that you see happening from General Growth's bankruptcy proceedings, or is it such a strong player that it'll be okay no matter what?
You know, I think it is such a strong player right now. It looks like there's going to be a class division in the General Growth properties where there's the good group and the bad group, and I have no question that Quail Springs Mall will end up in the good group. I think Brookfield Management, which is the partner that's trying to buy them out of bankruptcy, is a good asset management company, and I believe that Quail Springs Mall will stay in that good group. The bad group will probably be some spin-offs of General Growth properties. Now, General Growth also owns the mall in Norman, and I don't know what its strategy will end up being.
Larry?
A question. Now, on your chart where you had fiscal realities,
Yes.
you had 5 bullets on that chart.
Mm-hmm.
Second bullet was clicks versus bricks.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's a federal issue, correct?
Pardon me?
That's a federal issue.
Yes, it is, and I'm going to defer to Kathy to explain why we have chosen to opt into the point of delivery system, because that's directly related to internet sales. And I know there's federal legislation right now being proposed to correct that, but I'll let Kathy answer that.
Let's see what your question is first.
Oh, no. Okay. I'm reading. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The point of delivery versus point of purchase. Okay. That could be changed by the state legislature, could it not, in Oklahoma?
But it's
Yes,
related.
but then we would no longer be able to participate in the streamlined sales tax group that has been formed to try to implement internet sales tax legislation at the federal level. And Oklahoma City, as part of its federal legislative package, probably about 9 to 10 years ago, made the decision to be one of the early adopters of the new point of delivery, so that we could get the political pressure on to make that change in federal sales tax statutes happen.
And what I was getting on those two, we would like to have the internet sales taxed and get that revenue.
Yes.
But we
Yes.
don't, and we'd also like to get the tax on Mathis Brothers sofa when somebody buys it in Edmond, but you can't have it both ways.
You can't have it both
That's what I
ways.
was
And-
worried about.
yes, and we made the decision that it was better to have,
Understand?
yeah.
Okay. And in the last, you're excellent. Not every sale generates sales tax. Those exemptions are, again, a state issue.
There are both city and state exemptions, yes.
So we are also a part of wanting certain things exempted from sales tax.
That's correct. That's
Like?
correct. Well,
All of the exemptions that I know of are granted by the state, by state government.
We were in favor of the
And we
exemption.
support some of them. Yes, we do.
So we may be our own.
I'm not,
Okay,
I don't disagree.
A little schizophrenia.
I don't disagree.
no, and I didn't mean to intend that the exemptions are bad. It's just that by one estimation, the Oklahoma City MSA had in total volume of sales $20 billion, and yet our total taxable sales was really closer to $16 billion in the MSA. So, that's probably what we're losing in capture is that $4 billion that's not taxable. When you've got Tinker Air Force Base and the state of Oklahoma officing in Oklahoma City, you're very likely losing an awful lot of sales tax revenue to our government entities.
But again, some of the sales tax revenue we're losing is what we like for other reasons. So we are, I think somebody used the term schizophrenic or something. We just have to remember we are that.
That's absolutely true. And if anybody's interested in the federal legislation on the internet sales tax, I just got a bulletin today, and I'd be happy to forward that to anybody that's interested. Any other questions?
Are the prospects looking better for this internet sales tax issue to be dealt with?
I think the prospects are looking very good. They're looking better today than they've ever looked in the last 9 or 10
There's a
years
bill
that I've been working
introduced in
on.
this session that will be considered. That's what I'd be happy to forward to you.
And remind me, what is the estimated impact on Oklahoma City's revenues if we were able to tax internet sales?
I'm not sure we even have a good estimate at this point.
The estimate for 2012 for the entire state in the actual sales was $296 million. If you go back to the slide where we're capturing 18% of the state's sales, then perhaps you could apply that formula to that $296 million and get pretty close to what we're
Roughly
losing.
20% of $300 million.
Possibly.
Pretty good chunk of dollars.
Definitely.
It'd make a big difference for Oklahoma City.
Ron?
Allison, I know it's a program that's going to be launched in the coming months, but give an example of the revitalization strategies with communities and neighborhood associations.
Windsor Hills Shopping Center, Windsor Hills Neighborhood Association is very interested in seeing that shopping center revitalized. They've lost some tenants. They haven't been able to get their arms around how to get more tenants. I believe there's a brokerage company that has some listings, but they don't have a relationship with that brokerage company. So part of what we hope to do is host these workshops. I will come to the table with the Windsor Hills snapshot, with their demographic profile, with here's who we are, here's who we want to be, how do we connect those dots. Relationship building, again, helping them understand who those brokers are. Perhaps a workshop on just kind of real estate 101, helping them understand that if the owner needs to make X and the tenant's only willing to pay Y, why those deals aren't being done. Why Nordstrom's not coming to Windsor Hills. I mean, just helping them to understand what they should grasp for and what they should hope to achieve, and not dream too big, but I think that we can help them with some of those strategies. Getting to know their ownership base. Sometimes if it's a local owner versus a national owner, there's a whole different way of looking at things. But most of what we're going to do is help educate them as to who they are, because sometimes they think they have more people or less people, or they don't understand what their primary target is. They don't know if they should count Western Avenue within their district, those kinds of things. So just helping them to understand themselves a little better.
Allison, on that front, I think it sounds like you're trying to line up expectations with what the reality will be for those communities. The neighborhood associations, I think, are a great resource. Possibilities is a good nonprofit that helps neighborhoods establish their own priorities and see them through. So you may get some good nonprofit partners out of it.
And for me, it's important that Kim Cooper Hart, who's the city planning person who's been assigned to this, will come to the table with that knowledge. And so I think it'll be a good partnership for us to work with the city.
Jeff, would you like to say a few words about that program at Puma?
Yes. You want me to? Okay. I thought you wanted to.
No,
that's what I was going to say.
say.
Really what this came from was an effort to restructure the agreements that the city currently has with the South Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce, the Plaza District. We had one with the the Capital Chamber of Commerce and the East Side Capital Gateway Main Street program to kind of restructure those, because they want to revitalize a commercial area, but they need to have a better understanding of what that's really going to take and what they need to be looking for. So we've really tried to restructure that program a little bit to get them into some realistic, results-oriented programs so that they can build the framework and the groundwork that they need to have in place in order to get to retail recruitment. And that may be fairly far down the line for some of these areas. But there's other areas like Southwest 44th Street or the I-240 corridor that might have a little bit more potential that we can work with and help them better understand what exactly they need to be looking for. And it's a bigger program than just retail, but it's part of a commercial district revitalization program that we've put in place through the Council Economic Development Committee.
But we sort of shifted from a project-driven mentality to an area-driven mentality. I think it's going to be much more effective.
I think so, too, and I think that part of what we hope to do is just simply to let them know that the retail does have this department, and we do have these capabilities. And an example would be that there was a press release that a restaurant was looking to expand in the Oklahoma City area, and they wanted to open something like 17 restaurants. And again, Windsor Hills is the example, knew that I existed and emailed me and said, give me some information because I'm going to send it to Schlotzsky's, which was the tenant, which I did. And, I don't know that they landed at Schlotzsky's or even got a meeting with Schlotzsky's, but the idea that they knew that this position existed and they were watchful in the newspaper for press releases of tenants that they'd like to see in their community. So I think that as much as anything, just their awareness that the program exists will go a long way.
Other comments or questions? The $38 million in sales tax revenue that we generate from the Quail Springs area should go a long ways to make people feel better about the traffic situation. No. It was a try. I'm hoping. We want to get this set by awards. Thank you very much, Allison. The next item on our agenda is item 6G, and we have another report from the Chamber of Commerce. Robin?
Thank you. Robin Roberts-Krieger with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber Economic Development Division. And our focus is helping companies to grow, to create jobs, so people have money to spend at those retail stores. So that's kind of how we fit together, if you will. Some of these numbers you will see next month when we bring you the annual report for fiscal year 09-10. But I believe Larry McAtee had requested that we do a little bit of a look back, if you will. So I'm using numbers that have been since I was there, so I know that we're measuring apples to apples, and that's kind of the snapshot that we're using here. Before we go into this chart, just a couple of quick things. We are proceeding on our employment lands analysis, working with Kathy O'Connor, Russell Klaus, and the staff there. We had a lot of people send in responses to the RFPs, and we looked at some really good proposals, and so we should have some decisions made and be ready to move forward on that work starting in August, I would anticipate, and Kathy can probably fill you in more if you have questions on that specifically. We also, it's been, believe it or not, 5 years since we've done a real benchmark look back at the economic impact of the aerospace industry. For central Oklahoma, we basically use our 10-county central Oklahoma region, which is the MSA plus 3 counties, the workforce shed. And so we'll be starting this fall on that. And in addition to doing that update, we'll also be creating a directory for all of those companies, something that does not exist today. And given the federal players like the FAA and Tinker in this area, those kinds of resources are very good for those federal partners and vice versa. So we'll be doing that. Our bioscience strategy, again, it's been 5 years, so we're updating that. We'll have a look at how we did over the last 5 years, as well as where we need to go from here as industries go through lots of evolutions and change, and biosciences obviously has gone through a lot of change. The big pharmas are changing and outsourcing a lot of what they used to do internally, and that in turn opens opportunities for places like Oklahoma City, PHF, OMRF, et cetera. And then finally, in working with Kathy O'Connor and others, we're continuing to look at Tinker Air Force Base's facility needs. Lots of successes right now out there with the GM facility, and hopefully we're going to have some more announcements to make in the not-too-distant future. And also the FAA continues to grow, thrive, and we recently were in D.C. and were told by senior FAA leaders that they'd really like to grow the facility more here. We're working with the kinds of jobs that have to be secure and within the fence, if you will. There's lots of opportunities with developers to do things on the lands outside of those fences, but there are certain jobs that have to be within the fence because of security reasons, and so we will continue to look at how to work with those federal partners and grow those jobs here in Oklahoma City. So with that, I was going to take you through 3 quick PowerPoints that might be interesting. I would take you through quickly locates. That means either a retention that was successful, an expansion that was successful, or a new-to-market recruitment that was successful. And the dark blue, the first bar, would be new-to-market recruitments, the second bar, business retention and expansion, and then the total being the lighter blue-gray bar. I would note for you that the second set of bars, we added a second full-time person, and that's one of the reasons you see the big jump there. We had the capacity to really get out and meet with those Oklahoma City companies that need assistance, and I think that was probably money well spent when we made that decision. We have one full-time person. The Air Force took away my other one. Her husband was just transferred to a base in Arizona, and our new person will be starting in late July. So we will continue to have 2 full-time people in about 3 weeks. But I would note that that does make for a dramatic difference in business retention and expansion numbers. Also, the national recession officially began in December of 2007, and you'll notice the national conditions impacted us most in 08-09. That's really where we felt it come home to roost. We kind of went into that recession a little bit later. We're hoping to come out faster, keeping our fingers crossed. But you see the number of recruit locates and primary jobs back down, and then you'll see that they've come back up again this fiscal year. And again, those numbers were through June 30, so they're very, very new numbers for 09-10. The softening of the national economy also, there was a hiccup in 05 with Katrina and Rita, and we did see some spikes there as well as the escalation of energy prices. Our leads kind of collapsed for a while. It got really quiet for about 3 months, but then it started to come back. Most economists believe that the recession ended in mid-09. And while this is consistent, we still see some softening of the economy. There's a lot of debate right now on whether or not it's a double-dip recession, and I'm here to tell you I'm not an economist, and I don't think the economists agree anyway, so I just hope it's not, but it's something we're going to be vigilant about. It is of a concern. But we do believe you'll see the improvements in 09-10, and we do have a lot of active projects right now that Mike Ogan, Amber Egner, and Gary Pence are working that in fact, several were on the short list for, we're just waiting for some announcements, and hopefully those will be forthcoming soon, and we don't find them saying, well, we're going to put that project on hold because of the economy, and that's always the risk that we face. Finally, I'd say consistent with the jobless recovery, which is what we're hearing, that companies, a lot of our existing companies are spending more money on equipment and productivity improvements as opposed to hiring people, because they want to get their bottom line where it needs to be. That's not a bad thing necessarily, because you want your companies to be as absolutely healthy as possible and vibrant, but that does not bode well for large increases in employment. So I think that's a lot of what you're seeing in this jobless recovery, as people are calling it. And we anticipate 2010-11 to probably be flat with 09-10, and given 09-10 is a better year, that's not necessarily bad news. We're hopeful that we won't see a decline back to 08-09 levels. The next image talks about conversion rates, and I think that was a specific question that was asked. The drop in locates in 08-09 reflects, again, the impacts of the recession. So you can see that with fewer companies making new location decisions. We have projects in the pipeline. They just were really slow to make decisions, or they were putting projects on hold. And we did see a decline in overall leads. And some of them actually evaporated. And that was probably tied in great part to the economy and to the lack of capital. A lot of these projects just couldn't get financing. The significant jump in locates for 09-10 is part of 2 things. Companies and projects are more serious, or in our world, they're more real. So the ratio of locates to prospects and leads saw an increase. We don't see as many tire kickers. We see more people that are really serious about moving forward.
And then secondly, a reflection of an actual increase in the raw number of locates. That's consistent with an improving economy and an improvement on the number of companies that are either looking to move forward in our existing community or national or global companies looking to move forward and making decisions that may have been delayed maybe a year ago. They're finally making those decisions. And then the final image is just a roll-up for you of conversion by totals. And I'm not sure why. Hopefully, does yours have 3 bars on it or 2 bars? Oh, good, good. We are generally more successful converting prospects, and that's no surprise. A prospect visits here. A lead is somebody we've talked to and emailed, and we're in conversation and dialogue. They're interested in us, but a prospect is one that's actually come for a site visit. And so, again, we're generally more successful converting prospects to locates than leads to locates. So our first goal is to get them here because we believe we will show well, and then convert them to a locate. Plus, if we can get them here and dispel their misconceptions or preconceived ideas, that's a good thing. We really prefer to get the CEOs, the senior management team here, and not just the site selectors. Not always possible because a lot of times we're having to work through a site selector, and we sometimes don't know who the company is, or we're not allowed to directly contact that company, one of our frustrations, but it's part of the work we do. Also, the smaller ratio of leads to prospects in 08-09, I believe, is again a reflection of the recession. We talk to each other around the country in my world, and we, at our annual conference, a lot of times, it's an opportunity for me to kind of get a temperature or a pulse, if you will, for what's happening in the rest of the country. I would say that the south-central part of the United States and to a certain degree the Midwest probably looks a little bit more like what you're seeing here, and the coasts do not. The coasts do not look very good at all. So it's good to be in Oklahoma. And then also, we did experience a real decline in number of prospects that moved to locates, and that's not just in Oklahoma City. That was in most of the markets around the country. We continue to work projects. A lot of them, interestingly enough, are not just aerospace, which isn't a total surprise, but also in food processing. And then some of that's consolidation. We're seeing some of the food processing firms, the big multinationals, going through some consolidations after years of mergers and acquisitions. And we also will bring you our 09-10 Business Retention and Expansion Annual Report probably in September. So you can take a look at what the companies have been saying over the last year. And that is my report. Might I answer any questions?
Robin, thank you. Are there questions or comments for Robin?
Thank
Robin,
you.
you bewildered us with your drafts again.
I beg pardon?
Thank you very much.
Oh.
Are there any comments from staff?
At our last meeting, Mr. Payne asked for some renderings of the architectural structures at the Myriad Gardens. I have some here, and I wanted to just hand those out to you before.
But thank you. Any additional comments from the staff? Comments from the trustees? Are there any citizens who would like to address the trust? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.